Hello, and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in the series Freemasonry and Satanism, comma, book review. This is number 63, part 3, and I believe I'll end it with this video on this book, even though we haven't touched the surface. I'm going to do Mind Reach, Russell Targ and Harold Puthoff, which examines psychics and remote viewing and how to get an experiment that proves that this stuff is real, that people can go in a trance, close their eyes, be given the coordinates, say in Russia, Hawaii, sitting in New York or LA, leave their body, identify what is there, come back, make a drawing, and report. Is that valuable information for the military? Large corporations stealing secrets, stealing people's property, spying on people. What if the government has gone rogue and corrupt, which apparently it has? Because, but if you say that, little joke here, if you say the truth about the government going rogue and turning evil against the people, you could be called an anti-government belligerent. And if they pass a law saying it's illegal to be an anti-government belligerent, can they arrest you or assassinate you? This is important information in 2015. Important thoughts to consider. What can they do? Before I start, though, let's just take a look at a couple other books that I have gone over. We may revisit these books. But David Morehouse was inside the CIA's Stargate program, the true story of a soldier's espionage and awakening. So he was working for the government and he realized it was a bad thing. Psychic warrior, David Morehouse. So when I render my opinion and review these books, read these books, I didn't think I was justified in doing that until I had read many books over 10 years. Then I began, almost 10 years, making the videos. That was the deal I made with myself. And I did it, amazingly enough. Your life will never be the same. Thus came the first chilling words of Captain David Morehouse as he sat facing the program director of Stargate, the U.S. government's top secret psychic espionage program. What we do here is train selected personnel to transcend time and space, to view persons, places, or things or remote in time and space, to gather intelligence information on the same. We want you to become one of us. The young Army captain's heart nearly stopped from the psychic warrior. Pause it and read it. I don't make it up. So, as you can see, I went over this book, the tabs I leave on the side. We discussed this book in a video. All the details. Here's another book. Just to make a point, Dr. Bruce Goldberg, Astro Voyages. Mastering the Art of Interdimensional Travel. It says right here in the back. What happens to the physical body while your soul is voyaging? The difference between out-of-body experience, a near-death experience, and conscious out-of-body experience. How to determine what dimension you're on while you're astral voyaging. How you can meet kindred souls, having trouble reading today, on the astral plane. what it is like to be with your master and guides and review your karmic cycle on the soul plane. Find your karmic purpose while astral traveling. Welcome to the New Age. Alright. Had to reach for some more books. Tim Rifat. Go on the internet, look him up, and listen to him talk. Remote viewing and sensing for managers, for businesses. Remote viewing. And remote viewing, what it is, who uses it, and how to do it. And you can see my tabs, I read all that. You can see my tabs, all my little markers. So, it's obviously something to be aware of. And if the powers that be in the world, the new Pope, who they say is a Jesuit, who has said that he's all for a new world order, a one world religion, a one world currency, a one world government, Francis, those are all part of the New Age, New World Order. And it may sound nice, Commonwealth, share the wealth, socialism, but it reminds me of the Pinocchio movie when he was lured to that island by the two other creatures, only to find himself being beguiled into the backside of the island onto a slave ship. How apropos is that example? Beguilement. Cotton candy, Ferris wheels, come to the party, the world's gonna be great. As everybody gets in line off towards socialism, communism, the New Age, the big gay agenda thing with the Supreme Court. How bizarre is that? If you look into that, it's coming from the United Nations, which is controlled by the banksters, and we all know what they've been doing to the world, which are controlled by the Rothschilds, Rockefeller, Chases, Morgans, Schmitz, or whatever. You can look it up, and we went over the book from Fritz Springmeier, Bloodlines of the Illuminati. And these are all the people who are created, who made a deal to acquire the Palestinians' land and create the Zionist state of Israel now, where, if you talk to a travel agency, Tel Aviv in Israel is the #1 gay beach in the world to go to, so they say. So we can tie, and if you go on to the Synagogue Temple website, they're collecting millions of dollars to rebuild the temple right now in Jerusalem, King Solomon's temple. This is serious business. And they're also saying, a rabbi recently came out and said he had a dream and the Messiah is coming to the world. And the long-fulfilled promise of the Jewish people, the Zionist Jewish, not all of the Jewish people are for this program. Many good Jews have written books trying to warn the rest of us. Rabbi Marvin Antelman, to eliminate the Opate, Volume 1, Volume 2. PhD Canadian Jewish author Henry Macau, Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. So if this is true, if these nefarious characters have this one world domination program, the New World Order, in play, the New Age, and one of the biggest points of their whole program is depopulation. As the USA Georgia Guidestones say, look them up and read them. The first thing it says is to have a world population of 500 million and to maintain it at that level. So I guess about 6 billion of the world's people have to die for them to reach their goal, and they're very serious about their goals. As I did on the temple, the Synagogue of Jerusalem with the King Solomon's temple. I'll have to show you that document in this video at the end of it. But they're focused. They're going to build that temple. They said the Messiah is coming any day. They control the United Nations. Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said in a heated argument in their Congress, When somebody said, hey, we can't keep killing the Palestinians and taking the land, the United States will interfere and stop us. And Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, don't worry about the USA, we control the USA. Netanyahu, spit it out, Benjamin Netanyahu said that they hate America, and Finks Bar, look it up. Finks Bar, Benjamin Netanyahu. Look up the speech he said. America is a golden calf to be fleeced again and again and again. Why? Because they can take it. We hate them. We will sell off their entire country piece by piece until they become a world nation. Benjamin Netanyahu. There's so much more. President Roosevelt said, presidents aren't elected, they're selected. President Wilson, his whole cabinet advisors were Jewish folks. He wouldn't listen to the senators and representatives in his own cabinet who are not Jewish, while he schemed to get us into World War I and help Senator Hyde and some other folks create the Federal Reserve in 1913, December 23rd, a couple days before Christmas, while everybody was on vacation. And that Federal Reserve belonged to the Bank of Germany and England, the Rothschilds, the Zionist Jewish folks, who made an agreement with London, something called the Balfour Agreement, where these banksters, the Rothschilds, would finance England in the war with Germany, and then in return, London, the UK, would support the creation of a League of Nations and allocating the Palestinians' land to the Rothschilds to create the State of Israel. So everything has been planned, everything has been schemed, we've all been deceived. And what does that have to do with mind reach? If these people control the CIA, and the CIA is into remote viewing, and the CIA will even deal in drugs and other nefarious activities, to do the bidding of their masters, which is obviously not the USA people, and other secret organizations worldwide, even on 911. The Mossad agents from Israel were caught over here with some suspicious materials indicating they were probably involved with 911. They were arrested, immediately released, went back to Israel, went on TV and bragged about it. Some of the Israelis were in New Jersey across the river with cameras on tripods videoing the event and dancing and celebrating. Again, what's that got to do with mind reach and the rest of the material I'm going to talk about in this video? These people control the world. They're the ones involved in the sky spraying of chemicals and probably biologicals into our air, putting nanoparticles and heavy metals and God knows what else, dried red blood cells with who knows, AIDS in it, into the people over the cities. Go outside your house right now and look up. They're probably spraying you. You'll see ripples in it. Or if you check the weather, go on the internet, YouTube, key in the words HAARP, H-A-A-R-P. You'll get plenty of information about all these microwave transmitters located strategically all over the world that can aim at the sky, heat it up, bounce a signal off, and microwave a city. And what happens when you put a fork in a microwave? Some bad things. So what if you put heavy metals in the sky, and a lot of people have the heavy metals in their body, and you microwave them? You could heat up the person. You could burn up the person. Certain frequencies, you can alter the person's mood. Make them angry, make them ferocious, make them passive, make them lethargic, make them sick, make them have a heart attack. Some crazy stuff I'm saying, but it's all true from my research. And of course, as I always say, don't believe anything I say. Take some notes, go look it up. Be your own expert. I'm just trying to give a helping hand. After studying and reading almost every day for 10 years. Mind reach. Is ESP the mysterious province of a gifted few? Or is it a present but untapped potential in all of us? An unvalidated human capacity, awaiting scientific research and explanation. Well, I believe we all do have it. We all have a soul in our body. and these bodies are temporary. 70 years, 100 years, and if you die earlier in an accident, could be 20 years, 5 years. And at hospitals, and there's books written. One here we just looked at, astral voyages, leaving your body. Children in hospitals have died and been brought back to life, out-of-body experience. They see the tunnel, they go in the tunnel, they talk to their grandparents. The grandparent says, "It's not your time to die, go back." They wake up and they tell their parents what had happened while they were dead for 2 minutes. And they describe the grandparents who were dead before they were born. This is all in books. Either all these books are lies, or we, the people, need to become a little bit more informed about the possibilities and our own abilities. With that, let me get to this video. It's just stuff that needs to be said. They even make a joke about humans right now, calling 85% of the population zombies. They're sitting in front of the TV. Like that, every day, watching the news, believing the news. Or even on the computer on the right-hand side, while you're checking your email. Ashley Madison. Want to have an affair? Discreet and safe. Guaranteed. An affair dating site to cheat on your spouse. You know, the commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery, is number 7 commandment. On number 6, on the second tablet on the top, is thou shalt not kill. Then is thou shalt not commit adultery. Then is thou shalt not steal. So between stealing and murder is don't do adultery. And they got websites advertising you to break the commandment. And if it isn't that, then there's a pretty half-naked girl in all kinds of positions to distract you. Every commercial. I don't care if it's tires. Whatever. Could be a swimming pool. Well, maybe a good-looking girl would look nice next to a swimming pool. But tires, cars, TV newscasters. They're using some of the natural instincts of the human entity to kind of mind control people. And that's just the soft mind control. Alright, here we go. Chapter 2, Mind Reach. Some physicists experimenting with psychics to investigate the reality of leaving your body and spying, traveling, reporting, seeing, observing, even as far away as to Mars or something, or on the moon, they say. Is this stuff true, or is it just propaganda? Let's see. So this chapter is, what is an experiment? Ingo Swann, the armchair traveler. And as you see, I don't read everything. So here we go. I had submitted a proposal to Research Corporations, which was handling a laser patent for me, to obtain funds for some basic research into quantum biology. Okay, that's pretty serious. To obtain funds for some basic research into quantum biology. In the introduction to that proposal, I had raised the issue of whether physical theory, as we now know it, is capable of describing life processes. Continuing on, I then went on to suggest possible areas of investigation that might shed light on the issue. Describing life processes. A lot of us ask that question, what is life all about? Do we really have a soul? What happens after you die? Is there really a God? Those kinds of questions have been around since mankind existed. Alright. These included measurements with both plants and lower organisms. This proposal was widely circulated and a copy was sent to Cleve Baxter in New York who was involved in measuring the electrical activity of plants with standard lie detector equipment. And what they found out is that they hooked a lie detector up to a plant, and then they snipped off a part of the leaf. The poor plant started freaking out on the lie detector. Or if they took a similar plant nearby and started to kill it, the other plant would show an indication that things were erratic, that it seemed like it was aware. Plants. This reality, you know, the 100th monkey syndrome. How many people know about that? I asked a guy about that the other day when I was looking at some art. Really crazy art that looked like somebody that was a psychopath created the art. And I'm aware of the 100 monkey syndrome, so I just wondered if this guy who did this art was connected to all the other psychopaths who created the same kind of art. Anyways, on an island, apparently they had a problem with bananas dying, and there were a bunch of monkeys on the island, so they wanted to introduce an alternate food so the monkeys would not all starve off. And they did it with the avocado. But the monkeys were a little confused on how to peel the avocado. And not only that, when they peeled it, if they got sand all over it, they didn't like to eat it that way. So they had to show them to wash the avocado off in the water. And they showed it to some monkeys, and the monkeys picked it up. But they had a surprise lesson, was that it took maybe 100 monkeys to teach how to do this on this one corner of the island, when for some unknown reason, after you reached a certain quota of monkeys, all the monkeys on the island knew how to peel the avocado and wash it off in water. Some kind of higher consciousness connected them all, which I believe even with humans. Rabbits, birds, you see a robin or a blue jay make a nest, feed the babies. You know, how did the first year, you know, the robin that grew up in its first season, who was going to lay eggs and make a nest and feed the babies, they obviously didn't learn it when they were little chicks, because they were just worried about eating. They didn't make the nest. But they know how to do that instinctively. It's programmed into their DNA. I guess that's another way to put it. Scientists are learning a lot, but it seems that the people who are in control of all these kinds of things in science and laboratories and just important things learned like cloning, and much of this information is kept from the public and, in my opinion, used for nefarious purposes against the population. So it seems. So a copy of the proposal went to Cleve Baxter in New York, measuring electricity in the activity of plants. And then anyways, so although my proposal was funded in April of the year by Science Unlimited Research Foundation in San Antonio, Texas, was not specifically directed towards parapsychological research, I nevertheless invited Swan to SRI for a week of experiments to see whether his abilities could provide a vehicle for investigating quantum biological effects. So the quantum would be I've figured out a simple solution for people to understand the spiritual world. This ought to be good. But we all know Einstein said you can't go faster than the speed of light, 186,000 miles a second. So you take that one cycle, the fastest of the speed of light, and if you stretched it from here to Pluto and put a whole brand new spectrum of frequencies in there, so that would be way higher than the speed of light. I think that's the frequencies at which our souls and our spirits operate in, and that would be the other dimension in quantum physics. That's my simple explanation. It's just an infinitely higher frequency than this reality behind me and me speaking. This camera. And it's just like if you take a microscope and you zoom into the metal on these glasses or my arm, you go down deep enough and deep enough, you're going to see atoms and electrons swirling around. Yes, that's what they tell us in school. Quantum physics. So anyways, so what does quantum physics have to do with Ingo Swann sitting in a research chair, his body leaving, his soul leaving his body, or something like that, seeing things at a distance and reporting the correct information back to the people in the laboratory? So let's read on. This particular piece of equipment was a superconducting magnetometer. So they had this gigantic, for all practical purposes, compass. You know, finding directions, you've seen a compass. But this is a real sensitive compass that sits down in the basement, encased in a gigantic cement vault with special monitoring equipment. And the only thing that'll make that little compass move is maybe an earthquake on the other side of the planet or something very sensitive to the planet with the magnetic poles or something. They were doing some scientific measurements. What they wanted to do is they wanted to see if Ingo Swann could sit in a chair and concentrate and go see that magnet and move it. And guess what? He did. And he freaked out the scientists because their millions of dollars worth of sensitive equipment they now thought was useless. Not supposed to be affected by some human sitting in a chair thinking about it. Alright, equivalent to a supersensitive magnetic compass needle, which could register magnetic fields on the order of 1/1,000,000th that of the Earth's field. This setup was part of an apparatus built to detect quarks, particles hypothesized to be the basic building blocks of matter. So here's Ingo Swann. So he could make that piece of equipment move. Register. Now remember, I keep saying, all this stuff is good and fine. I like research. I like discoveries in physics. That was my aspiration when I was a young man. I wound up being an electronic engineering technician, working for a major aerospace company for 10 years. And I always continued to read books on physics and other fantastic sciences, and Edgar Cayce and the missing continent of Atlantis. And I've always been a reader. You know, Popular Science magazine, all that stuff, my whole life. So let's read on here, page 21. And by the way, like I keep saying, I'm not reading all these books. If you find this stuff fascinating, go buy the book. Let's give these authors and publishers a return on their investments. Ingo looked somewhat shocked and dismayed to find that he was supposed to affect a small magnetic probe located in a vault below the floor of the building, shielded by a metal magnetic shield, an aluminum container, copper shielding, and most importantly, a superconducting shield, the best kind of shield known. Ingo said later that perhaps it was his state of shock that propelled him into sufficiently altered state to consciousness to permit him to obtain the good results that followed. Before the experiment, a decaying magnetic field had been set up inside the magnetometer, and this provided background calibration signal that registered as an oscillating signal on the chart recorder. So they put some kind of material in it that's decaying, and the magnetometer can measure the decay. And if everything is going accordingly and nothing is interfering, all you'll get is a little sine wave. Ingo was shown the setup and told that if he were to affect the magnetic field in the magnetometer, it would show up as a change in the output reading. Then, according to his own description, at the time, he focused his attention on the interior of the magnetometer, at which time, after about a 5-second delay, the frequency of oscillation doubled for about 30 seconds. So here's a picture here of the magnetometer experiment equipment. All right, moving on. Page 22. A constant complaint of subjects in psychokinetics, that's making things move with your mind, experiments, is that no matter what miracles they perform, in the first experiment, the experimenter always responds by saying, "That was very interesting, but what I would really like to see you do is this or that." Engels said he would try, and in about 5 seconds he apparently proceeded to do just that, indicating at B in the graph for a period of about 45 seconds. So you can see the graph here, and you can see where it changes, and he did this with his mind, and this magnometer was shielded electromagnetically with metal and all kinds of things so that nothing could affect it. And those are the results of the lab test. And you can see where it was nice and straight, and then it starts to get crazy, doubles in frequency. So I guess my point is, these physicists were serious about this. They wrote a book. This is not the only book they wrote, Russell Targ or Harold Puthoff. I have these other books on the subject by other people who were into remote viewing. And the powers that be that seem very interested in creating a new world order and a new age. And fundamentally, I hate to say this, but they seem to be wanting to, they're involved in some kind of satanic, demonic, other entity worship. Hope I made sense with that statement. They worship Satan. They have even sacrifices of killing children and people. And the symbolism in the football halftime shows, the Olympic openings, the Grammys, the Eurovision, the American version of the American Idol program. And I mentioned this before in previous videos. But they had this guy winning the Eurovision singing contest who had his face with long hair like Jesus and the beard like Jesus. The face. You would think you're looking at Jesus. The body was a female in a silky dress. So silky dress body females with a head like Jesus, singing the song Phoenix Rising. If you know what the phoenix is, rising from the ashes, creating something new, with the words "You can't stop us." And his stage name was Cochita Wurst. Wurst means sausage, Cochita means a female part. I think you could figure it out. I'm just saying, these people who run our world are into the sciences and learn remote viewing and astral travel and all this stuff, hiring secret platoons of people to perform these and spying things, even possessing other people's bodies and controlling them. So my point again is they're studying this science, and they seem to be, excuse my language, hell-bent on bringing about a one-world religion and a new world order which is satanic. And the Army manual says you can't talk about Jesus in the Army barracks. It's a court-martial offense. And now, like in Oregon, they have a gag order by some judge that you can't talk about gay marriage. And then I think Obama has created some kind of gag order type legislation on the internet, banning some kind of discussions on gun confiscation. And in Spain, they have a gag order recently that you can't talk negatively about the government. It'll be a crime. So when we discuss this stuff, but to put it into context, what can they do, what do they know, and how can it affect us? Imagine if they did try to pull off something aggressive and start confiscating all the guns in America. And they could have remote viewers to spy on you. Do you think that would be important to know that? Or possess one of the people in your group and see what's going on through his eyes for a few minutes and listen to everybody. Just saying. Alright, let's move back onto this. I recall one such visit during which Ingo was at his finest. Two visitors representing a potential sponsor ran Ingo through a series of 10 hidden object in a box experiments. His descriptions were especially good that day. Motivation was high, but I was especially amazed in one of the series when Ingo said, "I see something small, brown, irregular, sort of like a leaf, and something that resembles it, except that it seems very much alive, like it's even moving." The target chosen by one of the visitors turned out to be a small, live moth he had captured, which indeed did look like a leaf. So you gotta ask, is this all real? What do you believe? Moving on, I'm tired of these psychological experiments, said Ingo. They're so boring. Why don't we do something exciting? I did some experiments at ASPR in which I moved my viewpoint to some remote location and described what was there. That was fun to do. And the studies were statistically significant. I think that I could look anywhere in the world if you would just give me some coordinates like longitude and latitude. Let's design an experiment around that. So I guess the scientist says, there was an awkward silence in the lab. So they didn't even believe what he was saying. They didn't even want to try it. It was so far-fetched. A few days later, Ingo brought up the subject again. These ESP experiments are a trivialization of my abilities. So Ingo wasn't going to let it go. So Russell and I agreed to compile a list of 10 coordinates. Pairs, latitude, longitude, and let Ingo attempt to give us a brief description of what he thought was there. Since it was just a game, an interlude from our scientific experimentation, we simply consulted a map in an adjacent laboratory, picked out 10 locations widely separated on the surface of the Earth, returned to the laboratory where Ingo was sitting, waiting. We read off each target location by longitude and latitude only. He had to immediately state what he perceived. Each response was checked for accuracy, and the next coordinates were given until all 10 pairs of coordinates were exhausted, a procedure which took roughly 20 minutes. On a later day, we ran through another series of 10 pairs. This time, to be on the tricky side, I chose coordinates of small bits of land. So apparently when he did the first 10, he did a good job. But they were worried that maybe he was an expert at memory photography. So they had to make the test a little more sophisticated. On a later day, we ran through another series of 10 pairs. This time, to be on the tricky side, I chose coordinates of small bits of land in the middle of large oceans and small lakes in the midst of large land masses. As we ran through this series, it became clear that my trap wasn't working, for Ingo's descriptions continued to show high resolution as he ripped through the session telling us of islands and small lakes. But that still left the possibility that Russell and I had been cueing him inadvertently. So they were thinking now, they're worried that Ingo was reading their minds or something like that. Which then again would have been a fantastic thing. The next time we took a break, we were ready for him. We had arranged with another SRI scientist who was admittedly skeptical about the possibility of such an experiment being successful to bring us a list of 10 pairs of coordinates without telling us what they corresponded. As Ingo breezed through the list with the confidence, I could hardly wait to learn of the list of targets and to correlate Ingo's responses after the experiment was over. Once again, even though the descriptions were perhaps a bit vague here, a little ambiguous there, they were accurate enough to make us begin to wonder whether we had on our hands a case of paranormal remote viewing or paranormal memory. So here's a little chart that shows the coordinates and the descriptions. Moving on. Similarly, the fourth target of the day was a point 20 miles northeast of Mount Hekla, a volcano in Iceland. His immediate response was, "I see a volcano to the southwest." So they had another test here, and Alright, intrigued by what we had seen, we set up a pilot study in which a series of targets from around the globe were supplied by SRI personnel and by interested scientists in other laboratories. Countermeasures against the subliminal cueing hypothesis were taken in. It was under the Scananti protocol that we received the coordinates 4920 south 7014 east, telephoned to us by a scientist challenging our work. No maps were permitted, and Swan was asked to report immediately. So a scientist called in the coordinates. They told it to Swan, and Swan says, "My initial response is that it's an island, maybe a mountain sticking up through cloud cover. Terrain seems rocky, must be some sort of small plants growing there. Cloud bank to the west, very cold. I could see some buildings rather mathematically laid out. One of them is orange. There is something like a radar antenna, a round disc." He draws a map. 2 white cylindrical tanks, quite large. To the northwest, a small airstrip. Wind is blowing. Must be 2 or 3 trucks in front of the building. Behind that is an outhouse. There's not much there. Swan also described the coastline of the island, drawing segments on a piece of paper. And let's see what he drew. Turn the page, and here's a picture of Kerguelen, and here's Swan's drawing. Well, it's got the coves right. The peninsula is there, the bay is there. I guess the airstrip is there. Alright, the coordinates were of an island in the southern island Indian Ocean. I'm reading backwards today, I guess. Administered as part of the French southern and Antarctic lands called Kerguelen. Kerguelen now serves primarily as a base for a joint French-Soviet research facility for conducting upper atmospheric meteorological studies. Moving on with this chapter, it was clear that several steps would have to be taken before this phenomenon was demonstrably under an easily replicatable protocol. Nevertheless, Swan's ability to describe correctly details of building roads, bridges, and the like forced us to accept the possibility that a subject like mental means could locate and describe randomly chosen remote geographical sites. And I think Morehouse goes into great descriptions on some of the work he did for the secret agencies and the military. And in some of this materials, even to the ability that they could possess somebody else's body and make them do their bidding, their will. Consider that when you think about these school shootings, church shootings, and other incidents going on. Are powerful organizations and military secret ops, running some experiments, testing their abilities? Would that be important to know? Would that be concerning? Do we have a runaway government who thinks they know everything now, and the only problem they got is there's too many people on the planet to feed and support? Apparently that's not their focus. They're not interested in feeding, supporting, and doing their jobs as they were elected or hired to do. They've turned traitor on their own, on the citizens of the world, or they've been infiltrated by some groups of people. Hence why this series is Freemasonry and Satanism. And as I keep saying, the name should have been Freemasonry, Satanism, Zionism, Jesuits, Rosicrucian, Club of Rome, Kabbalah, Satanists, Knights of Columbus, Knights of Malta, Trilateral Commission, Heritage Foundations, Ford Foundations, Carnegie Foundations, banksters like Rothschilds, Rockefellers, this big pyramidal structure of all these evil groups and forces and organizations worldwide in every country. And they know all this stuff. They're the ones who pay for these scientific studies. And then when the authors go write the book, sometimes the authors get in a lot of trouble. David Morehouse had trouble getting this book published. Tim Rifat books, by the way, he wrote a real thick one I have, is banned from being sold in the United States. He's over there in England. I had to order it online to get the book. Stuff they don't want you to know. Why? It was clear that several steps would have to be taken before this phenomenon was demonstrable under an easy, replicable protocol. Nevertheless, Swann's ability to describe correctly details of buildings, roads, bridges, and the like forced us to accept the possibility that a subject by mental means could locate and describe randomly chosen remote geographical sites. Said that twice. These early experiments were useful in establishing the existence of remote viewing as a real phenomenon. This is a couple physicists. This is not Rick here. The constant, incredible experiments, although not universal, we faced for even being involved in such experimentation. So their peers, other scientists, were probably ridiculing these guys, as always they do when people are doing something different. Made it clear that positive results would not be welcomed by everyone. Scientists and non-scientists alike often found it difficult to confront data that appeared to be greatly at odds with their worldview. Entrenched belief structures die hard, even in the face of data. At all times, we and others responsible for the overall program would take measures to prevent sensory leakage and subliminal cueing, and to prevent deception, whether intentional or unintentional. So the scientists were trying to get legitimate, high-quality tests done that nobody could dispute. Moving on. See how much more I got to go here. The site was selected at random to ensure that the subject had no prior knowledge of it, and no cueing by the experimenter remaining with the subject was possible, since both were kept ignorant of the particular target and the contents of the target pool. The demarcation team remained at the target site for the agreed-upon 15-minute period, followed by 30 minutes that were allowed for travel. During this time, the subject described his impressions in a tape recorder. He also made drawings he thought appropriate. As the added precaution, SRI management sometimes arranged for those who had been the most skeptical to judge the results. So they found the biggest skeptics and had them actually monitor the situation. And often, much to their chagrin, dismay, their target matching generated some of the best statistical results we obtained. So they put the skeptics in charge of these, And they got really good results. Which reminded me, once I was trying to use a pendulum once in New York when I was visiting my sister. And little did I know she had been studying Reiki, which is a kind of a healing with the hands and stuff. And I had been studying dowsing for water and stuff like that. And I went to use the pendulum over something, and I couldn't get it to do that, and I was completely embarrassed showing her how to do this. And my sister laughed at me, and she said, "Rick, I study Reiki, and I was stopping your pendulum from moving with my mind." Isn't that crazy? Here I was trying to get a yes or no on something, and my sister's mental mind control was blocking it. Under these extremely tight protocol, which had not been faulted by even our worst detractors, the results with several subjects, I'm not reading right here, see, 7 out of several, were excellent and were evidently published in a leading engineering journal, the Proceedings of the IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineering. That's an impressive organization. The following experiment with Swan as the subject demonstrates the level of proficiency that can be attained with practice. The target chosen by the double-blind protocol was the Palo Alto City Hall. Swan described a tall building with vertical columns and set-in windows. His sketch drawn during the experiment, together with the photograph of the site, is shown in Figure 9. Swan said there was a fountain, but I don't hear it. In fact, at the time the target team was at City Hall, the fountain was not running. He also made an effort to draw a replica of the designs in the pavement in front of the building and correctly indicated the number of trees, 4 in the sketch. In the 4 years we have worked periodically with Swan, he had been studying the problem of separating the signal, those perceptions which were accurate, from the internal noise. It was Swan's idea to dictate 2 lists to us. One list contains objects he sees, but does not think are located at the remote scene. The second list contains objects that he thinks are at the scene and are labeled as such. Alright, so here's a couple drawings of where the guys went, and Swan in the laboratory described the locations. There's another series of experiments there. So the target was an abacus clock target. So somebody was doing the abacus, and then Swan saw this and drew this. So let's say here, in our evaluation, he has made much progress in the most essential ability to separate memory and imagination from paranormal inputs, a key to develop the usefulness of remote viewing channel. Moving on, I just had to move my little apparatus here. Sunlight was beaming through. Page 40, as we were to learn later, this type of counting task, which requires functioning in an arithmetic mode, requires specialization characteristic of the brain's left hemisphere, while evidence mounts that remote viewing is a function through which the right hemisphere. And as I've said before in previous videos, we all have 2 lobes. One is the left hemisphere, which is this reality, you seeing me seeing myself in this video. And then there's the other dimension, which accesses the higher world, which again, as I explained in my description of quantum physics, operates at a infinitely higher frequency rate and accesses the other world and warns us of danger, and we have premonition, and it's like that 100th monkey thing. We're connected all together somehow. And our spiritual body is. It's my opinion. But again, you know, when you get the people in the governments who have gone 50, 100 years advancing in these technological research programs. What do they know? What can they do? Can they mind control people? Would they mind control people? Would they fabricate 911, attack the Middle East, overthrow the Ukraine, take the gold away, threatening the world right now with Jade Helm, Agenda 21, communism, nuclear explosions, Planet X they say is coming, volcanoes going off, the Jews want to build the temple, say the Messiah is coming. We've got some psychopaths, insane people running our world. And what do they know? And what will they do? Look at the videos on YouTube with some of the TV programming with all the subliminal messages that the right side of your brain picks up on that you miss with the left side of your brain. Just goes right by. But your right side, which operates at a significantly higher frequency, catches it. Even cartoons where they slow it down and it exposes Roger Rabbit's girlfriend's legs being spread with a view of something that, you know, you wouldn't want to see your kids see on TV. And you wouldn't see it unless, but your subliminal brain, your right lobe does catch it. And so people walking around when they just throw sex, gay sex, do anything you want. Ashley Madison, have a secret affair. The Russians are evil, the Arabs are monsters. Whatever they want to program on us. Subliminal. Many laboratories in the USSR, Russia, have been engaged in paranormal research. Since the 1930s, for example, in the laboratory of L.L. Vasily, we went over his book in past videos of mine, Leningrad Institute for Brain Research, there you go. There has been an interest in the use of telepathy as a method of influencing the behavior of a person at a distance. Back in 1930s. You think they can control a young kid to go shoot up a school or shoot up a church? Or a movie, Batman movie, Boston Marathon? You think they can do it? Well, you're going to find out they can. And they are. And they have. And it's documented on Wikipedia everywhere. Vasily's book, Experiments and Distance Influence, reveals that the bulk of his experiments were aimed at long-distance communication and what we would today call behavioral modification. For example, using long-distance hypnotists to put people to sleep. Even to have heart attacks, they can leave your body and go do that, according to David Morehouse. The behavioral modification type of experiment has been discussed in recent times by I.M.K. Kogan, chairman of Bioinformation section of the Moscow Board of the Puthoff Society, PAVO. He is a Soviet engineer who, until 1969, published extensively in the theory of telepathic communications. Kogan was concerned with three principal kinds of experiments: mental suggestions without hypnosis over short distances, in which the recipient attempts to identify an object; mental awakening over short distances, in which a subject is awakened from a hypnotic sleep at the beamed suggestion of the hypnotist. And we've all seen the movies and murder mysteries where somebody hypnotizes somebody and causes things to happen. Stuff's not new. Long-range intercity telepathic communication. So imagine if you had your troops trained to do this and you didn't need one of them big walkie-talkies to talk to them. You could just have a psychic contact a psychic and the enemy wouldn't be able to interfere with that. But then again, this technology, they do train psychics to be able to interfere with that and monitor people in places all the time. All right, the last 2 pages in this book, and we'll do something else. In the USSR, serious consideration is given to hypnotists that telepathy functions as a basis of extremely low frequency, ELF, electromagnetic propagation. So that would be a very low frequency wave. Boom, boom, Boom. And they put a carrier signal on it like an FM station. So ELF is electromagnetic propagation, low frequency. HARP come to mind, those big microwave transmitters all over the place. What if they just pulsed it really slow? Boom, with a microwave blast. Boom, with a microwave blast. Boom, with a microwave. And you'd be getting barraged with a blast if you ever had a bunch of hot air hit you at once. And you wouldn't even know it. Boom. Boom. Hope you like my acting. I like to make this stuff clear. In general, the entire field of paranormal research in the USSR is part of a larger effort. See how I keep getting things wrong here today? Concerned with the interaction between electromagnetic fields and living organisms. While at the conference, for example, we heard Koladov speak at length about the susceptibility of living organisms to extremely low-level AC and DC fields. He described how fish reacted to 10 to 100 microwatts of radio frequency energy, a small amount, induced into their tank. The USSR takes these data seriously in that the Soviet safety requirements for steady-state microwave exposure sets limit at 10 microwatts per square centimeter, whereas the United States has set a steady-state limit 1,000 times higher. Why do a lot of countries ban Monsanto foods? Because your body doesn't recognize them and it causes cancers and tumors and kills you. Instead of giving you the benefit food is supposed to give you. But the United States is forcing it on us and will not ban it. When the United States was supposed to be the leader in the world in civilized society, it's turning out to be just the opposite. And don't forget, as Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, don't worry about the USA, we control the USA. So a lot of people say our government has been taken over. It seems so, and they're doing Jade Helm, and they're bent on removing the guns, and every time prior to this in revolutions, after they got the guns, they proceeded to start slaughtering the citizens. While at Prague conference, Ingo and I both had ample opportunities to discuss these matters with our Soviet counterparts. I found it interesting that whenever a discussion of SRI work came up, the questions centered not on whether we felt we had proof of paranormal functioning, or even what the protocols, equipment, or results were, but rather on what we did to stabilize our subjects to overcome psychological stress. So the Russians had this stuff down. After a series of such interchanges, we came to the conclusion that the emphasis on subject stability indicated that the Soviets were most certainly beyond the stage of trying to decide whether paranormal functioning was a real phenomenon. They recommended that a newly formed psychological institute within the Soviet Academy of Pedagogical Sciences review the area and consider the creation of a new laboratory with one of the institutes to study persons with unusual abilities. A postscript to the Prague conference occurred a month after I returned to the United States. I received a letter from Dr. Rajek, a Czechoslovakian host of the conference, requested the loan of the SRI film on paranormal research with Geller, which I had shown at the conference. I responded to the request only to find, after a 3-month delay in its return, that it had also toured several laboratories in the Soviet Union. So he sent his video of some research to this Czechoslovakian guy, and apparently it made its rounds in Russia, then called the Soviet Union. The end of the summer of 1973 also brought to an end our 8-month program with Ingo Swann. You can look up Ingo Swann or Tim Reifat or David Morehouse on the YouTube, and you can see these people talking and videos about them, and get yourself some kind of confident education as to what this is all about. He left with an unmistakable sense of the breadth and scope of the human side of the research we were now committed. So, like I said, I'm only up to chapter 2, but I will just right now show you what the other chapters are. I will finish reading the book, maybe talk about some of it in other videos or later times, but this is enough. Patrick Price was another popular remote viewer who is an ex-police detective. Parapsychology and Everyday Life. Pat Price, a man for all seasons. He was gifted. Let's see what else we got here. Looking for gifted subjects. There's schools now by these guys you can look up in the United States and Europe that you can go to for a week or two and learn how to remote view. Apparently it looks good on your corporate resume. You want to get a big job. Managing people with these kind of skills, I guess, could come in handy. About time. Yesterday's paradox, today's reality. In one brain and out the other. The two hemispheres of the brain see the world in different ways. I've said this before. See, when we learn about things, what do they say? The truth shall set you free. And these evil people ruling our world can't get away with what they're getting away with if we become a little wiser and smarter. Is chaos necessary? Uri Geller in the laboratory. Uri Geller was another good psychic. You can look him up. You can get other books on the subject. But again, with these technologies, my concern is the insane psychopaths running our world, wanting World War III, and apparently remove the guns and force the New Age agenda, including transvestites and transgender, bisexuality, gay sexuality, adultery, onto a decent Christian society. I'm opposed to that. I don't hate gay people or nothing. I just don't like the United Nations and the high power people running the world trying to force it on us all. The loyal opposition, what are they loyal to? So I think this book is worth reading. The Peaceful Use of Psychic Energy. And again, I'm not against learning our God-given gifts. And doesn't it say in the Bible that Jesus said once when his disciples said, Jesus, we can't perform the miracles that you are doing. And Jesus said, I'm just paraphrasing, ye of little faith. They didn't have the faith to believe. But he also said in the future, ye shall do greater things than I. So like I said, we all have spiritual bodies, astral travel. But we're also responsible for what we do with that knowledge and those abilities. In Peru, you know, they selected their next shama, the doctor or the healer, holistic person for the tribe. A ghost or something would appear in a little boy's hut and say, you're going to be the next shama. And the little boy would awaken in the night and say, I don't want to be the next shama. And the ghost would say, well, then you shall surely die tomorrow. So the little boy, well, okay, I'll be the shama. So he learned from the elder shama. And basically what they did is they took that ashka, I can't say the word right, vine down there in Peru, and it put them in a trance and they could go into the other dimension and consult beings there and come back with the recipe to help cure somebody who was sick. Go into the woods and find the right kind of herbs or bark and grind it up and prepare it. And what's interesting about that is, in the book I read on Peru, is the medical laboratories up in Ohio and New York and wherever else were sending spies, but they were calling them professors, to study the recipes and cures that the Peruvians had obtained from the other side. And what they were really doing is getting the recipes, going back up north here to the United States, patenting those recipes, and then the corporations, big companies, medical corporations, would start selling those medicines to people everywhere. So the corporations got their secrets from the shamans who got it from the other side. Now that's amazing. And the other story is, of course, prior to the current medical system we have now. They have holistic healing and allopathy. Anyways, in the early 1900s, the story goes, in Eustace Mullins' book we went over in the past, a lot of doctors were out there were helping cure people with holistic methods, herbal methods. And Rockefeller went out of his way to take over the medical schools and institutions and the politicians, and discredited and ridiculed the doctors who were using all those natural remedies, and forcing on the medical field the surgical cut and splice and medical field, allopathic, homeopathic. And so they pretty much ran all those doctors out of business who were using herbal and other kinds of holistic healing, women giving birth, whatever, into the medical C-section and all that kind of stuff in the hospital with knives and stuff, sewing people up. And then, of course, that was early 1910, 1920, whatever. And then now they're bringing back the herbal stuff with the big corporations in control of those secrets. It all boils down to money and power. So you ridicule it, you get rid of it, it's forgotten, but you have it all. And the same thing that happened with the Crusades when the church, the Pope sent the Spaniards or whoever to South America with the big banners carrying the cross into the villages in Mexico. Made a beeline for the shaman's hut, got his secrets, took his equipment, killed them, and then proceeded to kill all the natives and take their gold. They wanted those spiritual secrets, those things, the tricks and knowledge that shaman had. Case after case, all over the world. The Library of Alexander, the Catholic Church, burned it. Vast volumes of knowledge in those books of ancient sciences, nature's secrets were lost when they burned those libraries. But you can bet your bottom dollar that in the vaults of the Vatican and other places in the world, they have those books, that information. All right, on with that rant and on to a new subject. All right, I want to continue with the article in Nexus magazine that I've been going over in the previous two videos. Mind control techniques of the 21st century. This is it right here. And as I said, you can't buy these Nexus magazines in the USA anymore. And I was told, I don't have absolute proof, that because of the mind control articles. Apparently they don't want the people to know this stuff. Especially the Jade Helm exercise going on right now. July 15th to September 15th. And I just heard in the news they're thinking about extending it. But they're dispersing troops all over the United States right now. And it's an exercise to extract dissidents. Maybe people who watch my videos and learn too much, or other people who know what's really going on with the New World Order and New Age. People who don't agree to all the new transgendered, bisexual, adulterous world being promoted as good. And people who want to stick to Christianity or other good religions and a belief in God, which Rabbi Marvin Antelman, who wrote the books to eliminate the opate, which means to eliminate people or the belief in God, which, as we know, our right brain connects to the higher world. So when you do believe and you pray, God does perform miracles and can change situations. I believe that. It's been proven in my life. And now if you were the Luciferian team, and you wanted to bring around a new world order and enslave everybody, and live in mansions and like pharaohs and kings and presidents or whatever, emperors, well then you wouldn't want your population to know this. And throughout history they always purged the people who knew this stuff, like the Library of Alexander or the Shama's knowledge. They always, how many people now, scientists, have been reported as murdered mysteriously? Biological scientists, physicists, astronomers, And how many high military officials has the Obama administration let go since Obama has been president? People who rejected, my papers are flying around, said no to the question, will you fire upon the USA people if we tell you to? Something weird is going on. So it behooves us, again, like I said, to have this information I'm talking about. So, how much more have I have to go here? How much will I get done? How much will I will not get it all done? There's several pages. Synthetic reality, electromagnetic high, electromagnetic mind control, hallucination creation, information injection, thought control, EEG cloning, mind hacking, making connections. Oh my God. Let's just pick a couple things. I'm interested in thought control. That's important. Norcine described a technology that can literally control one's thoughts. As he explained it in the U.S. News and World Report article, one could possibly even begin to manipulate what someone is thinking before they know it. And I'm thinking, white guy goes into black church, shoots up everybody, whom his friends were black, said he was a nice guy. He didn't hate black people, if you watch the YouTube videos and you believe them. Or the Sandy Hook, which seems to me clear evidence that it was a staged event. And who knows the person that they're blaming, what kind of mind control they had over him. The Batman movie shooting, whose father was into some nefarious activities and banking scandals and governmental programs. 911, lied to the people. So much going on. London train bombings, when they're having an exercise, pretend train bombings. 911, they were having a pretend exercise going on with all the aircraft, military aircraft on stand down. Dick Cheney was in charge. And the Oklahoma City bombing, I read that book on that guy, and he seems like he was an inside agent for the CIA, an undercover guy. And he used these guys as scapegoats in the end. It's like the John Kennedy murder, assassination. So they can, before they know it, they can make people think. Dr. Robert Duncan, a scientist who worked on projects for the Department of Defense and the CIA, likens this thought filtering and suppression capacity to the automated spell check in Microsoft Word, which corrects spelling errors as one types. According to Duncan, even new thoughts can be suppressed. Moreover, memories can be faded or erased. So they can make you think what they want you to think. Brain prints. The most invasive form of mind control may require analysis of the unique characteristics of an individual's electromagnetic output, what Norcine called brain prints. A person's brain prints leaks out into the environment. So as I'm thinking, there is a radiating field, because we all have an aura too around us, which if you take your hand and gently just try to feel your arm without touching it, some people say you can feel the aura. It's like jelly. But you have to really relax so you can feel someone else's arm and they can, over the scanning your body, something probably what the Reikis do to heal people with their healing energy. But you can run it over your body and you can feel this auric field. And if somebody's a speaker at an event, you can see the glow all over them as their energy radiates. Everybody knows this. So here you are thinking and radiating a print. A person's brain prints leaks into the environment in unique energy dispersion patterns, which if monitored by mixed electromagnetic sensors could be potentially be used to identify and track the person. So if they had monitors on every street corner, wherever you walk, they would pick up on your print. Alright, moreover, brain prints could even be transmitted back into the brain, intact or rearranged, to the individual or someone else, while the brain acting upon the information as if it were a real signal from the environment. So with the supercomputers they got now, like everybody carrying around those new cell phones, like this here, with everything on here from a calculator to the internet to the phones to music synthesizers. If that's what they hand out free to all the citizens everywhere, what can they really do? An aside, much of what Norson told Duncan Laurie may actually have been old hat. Like I said, this is years ago. Norcine had security clearances, which he had signed 70-plus year non-disclosure agreements. Moving on, EEG cloning. Copying one person's brainwaves onto the brain of another person is a technology sometimes referred to as EEG cloning. A researcher, Tim Reifat, we just looked at his books, Tim Reifat, explains that emotions and states such as anger and aggressiveness, apathy, lust, psychopathy, suicidal depression, mania, paranoia, and psychosis have distinctive frequencies which can be entrained into the brain. Thinking about all these young people who are seeing doctors and on medications doing crazy things, and if you ever see them on TV, they look like they're lost, or they get shot right away, so they can't fess up and tell. Can be entrained into the brain remotely by use of extremely low-frequency broadcasts carried by pulse-modulated microwave beams, ELF pulse-modulated microwave remote mind control technologies. As physicist Dr. Richard Allen Miller puts it, by using computer-enhanced EEGs, scientists can identify and isolate the brain's emotion signature clusters, synthesize them, and store them onto another computer. In other words, by studying the subtle characteristic brainwave patterns, everybody carries one of these. It is a receiver and a transmitter, and very sophisticated at that. Makes you wonder how they make it so affordable with that technology. Is it like we're carrying around our own connection, like a printer has to plug into the computer? It's just a peripheral device of the computer. Do these things here make we, the people, peripheral devices of some supercomputer, crazily enough that they call the Beast? Look up the Beast computer. Wow. Alright, so scientists have been able to identify the concomitant brainwave pattern and can now duplicate it. So they can just document your brainwave pattern, probably with these cell phones, laptop computers, regular computers, TV, who knows? Those electrical devices that they put out there to monitor smart meters, smart light bulbs, smart appliances in your kitchen. Can they pick up and register and document your emotional P300? We talked about that everybody response has. Those stored emotion signature clusters can be entrained into the human beings to trigger the emotion. So once they capture your anger emotion or whatever, depression, then they could just reverse engineer and feed it back to you and put you in a depressed, angered, confused. Maybe even kill you. More than mere emotions, even another personality can be cloned onto another individual. This cerebral cortex cloning has been likened to having an enemy within one's own mind. Again, I'm thinking about these crazy things that these so-called terrorists, young boys, are doing. Right here it says, one note, Tamerlan Tarsarny, alleged Boston bomber, most likely a patsy, was subject to what he calls majestic mind control and told his mother that it felt as though another person was inside him telling him things to do. Wow. All right, making connections. John Norcine suggested that the brain A biological computer could be connected wirelessly without a brain-computer interface to a technological computer, explaining that a person could possibly be pinged with a light sequence or an ELF, extremely low frequency radiation sequence. And we got all those HARP transmitters and cell phone towers being put up everywhere. Some say a lot of fake cell phone towers with these microwave transmitters on them. Ah! Are they really getting ready to enslave the people like zombie robots? Or suppress any dissidents? See, what they really want is a slave of humans who are docile, work hard, and require very little food or money to take care of. And then to dispose of them once they're not needed or wanted. As in maybe getting a little older. Imagine a sex slave that's getting a little older. Well, let's get rid of her. A farm worker starts to get 45 years old, can't work as hard, needs medical attention. Let's just get rid of him. Turn him off. Alright, an extremely low frequency radiation sequence causing something to be fired off in the brain. Of course, one computer pings another to test connectivity between the two devices. Moreover, if multiple brains were connected to the same system, the same brain signals could be routed to cloned onto multiple brains. Broadcast messages could even be sent, inducing similar thoughts, feelings, behaviors, or even beliefs in all people on the network. People need to look up Project Bluebeam. This is a years-old program that they're supposedly going to use eventually to bring about the new Messiah, the Antichrist or something. Basically, in the sky, you'll see gigantic holographic images of Jesus or Buddha, whatever it is you want to see. And you will think that that time is coming, whichever religion you happen to be. Project Bluebeam. They're developing the satellite technology and the holographic technology, the electromagnetic spectrum, and pinging your brain and documenting it for everybody across the planet, it seems. Mind hacking is Robert Duncan's term for the process in which the brain is remotely mapped, and though with some degree of operational control, kind of convolution of words here, through which some degree of operational control over the brain becomes possible. A mind hack establishes the full capacity of wireless interaction with a brain and a computer. Wow. To hack a brain, the brain prints or overall brain signature of the person must be deciphered. A mechanical deterministics process. Mechanical deterministic process requiring only time and the target's coordinates to be effectual. In other words, given time and coordinates, anyone's brain can be hacked, according to this article. This is crazy stuff here. Precise timing of pulses is how the trick is done. HARP systems, cell phone towers, cell phones, computers, TVs, digital TVs. You're watching the TV and the TV's watching you. Maybe this camera, which is hooked up to the internet, by the way, maybe they're watching me. A little bit of paranoia there. The timing of the pulses must exactly coincide with the end of a neuron's depolarization, specific to each individual and their microcircuits. This bit stream acts like an encrypted message that only a single unique human brain with an exact physical patterns can interpret. So once they map your brain, they have access to you. There's more to this article. I'll give you the information where you can find it and look it up. But I'm just going to read the conclusion. There's never enough time in these videos to tell you everything I would like to say. We are faced with a world in which dystopian science fiction is fast becoming reality. Worldwide, thousands of targeted individuals claim to have had experiences consistent with what Robert Duncan calls mind hacking. Moreover, as these are only self-identified targets, and a lot of people have contacted the FBI, the police, doctors, because they have implanted devices or weird things are happening to them. And for the large part, the officials just laugh, and they don't believe anybody. And some of the perpetrators who are doing it, laugh at the target and say, nobody's going to believe you. And apparently, one of the, as we know, the CIA was involved is involved in the drug trade to generate revenue to support all the black op projects. Well, I seem to have identified something new that they might be into. Let's say you're a widow and your husband was wealthy and you inherited everything. And you maybe had a beautiful home on top of a mountain and a couple estates and millions of dollars in investments. Well, apparently these people who are ruling our world might want your stuff. And they're using these technologies to gang stalking, installing microchips into people, aiming energies at them, making them go crazy, fall under the command, hypnotism, signing over their fortune, killing them afterwards. So in other words, using these technologies to steal people's wealth. Wow. While thousands of targeted individuals claim to have had experiences consistent with what Robert Duncan calls mind hacking, moreover, as these are only self-identified targets, the actual number of targeted individuals could be significantly greater. Meanwhile, whistleblower Edward Snowden goes about revealing NSA surveillance abuses largely disclosed by others in prior years, but without the consternation and media fanfare. Well, the media is owned by these sinister people ruling our world, as everybody knows. Or as Text Mars sent me a pamphlet once, a little newsletter, saying something outrageous in the newsletter that I didn't believe. I've mentioned this on previous videos. That apparently CEOs of all these major corporations were Jewish. And there's good Jewish people out there like Henry McGowan and Rabbi Marvin Enoim, who have been warning us about these bad Jewish people and other nefarious groups. Freemasons, Illuminati, Rosicrucians, Kabbalah, Zionism, Jesuits, the Vatican, banksters, elites. I mean, even Bill Gates has talked about creating more vaccines so they could control the population. Wait a minute, isn't vaccines supposed to stop people from getting diseases? And here he is on stage that if used effectively, they could reduce the population with the vaccines. That's why they put mercury in there? Anyways, while Snowden's revelations are certainly not trivial, it is apparent that the American and world populations now exist in a bubble of unreality, entirely unaware of the science fiction technologies arrayed against them. Hence you have Rick Miracle, me, making these videos, Freemasonry and Satanism, because I think I've identified the culprits who are trying to reduce the population. In other words, get rid of people they don't want. 6 billion people is too many for them. Look at where I am right now. Does it look like too many people around here? Go take a ride on a plane and see how much empty forest there is. Look, fly over the Yucatan in Mexico. Most of it's empty. Forest in South America. All this other stuff they're telling people is lies. Who owns all the corporations and power plants and nuclear plants and all this stuff? They do. But they're saying we humans are the polluters causing global warming. We don't own the smokestacks. We're not the ones concealing the new technologies that could make the whole world free. They are. And if you read their books, which I have, Even H.G. Wells was complaining about too many people on the planet in 1930. The elites have always had disgust towards the common people. Probably a guilt complex from taking advantage of them and robbing them. Scanning brains. I'll read one more portion and move on to something else. According to John Norstein, the brains of individuals in a given population can be surveyed and unusual brain signatures, brain prints, identified from afar. Norstein writes that multiple sensors can detect and measure what you think. Further, these mind-reading capabilities are much more robust than traditional diagnostic technologies such as EEG and fMRI, and involve more remote sensor analysis. I'm probably carrying my own an analyzer. Using interferometers techniques such as that information about underlying neuron activity can be collected. Anyways, who you can look up to read this article: Stephen DeBasio is a writer, attorney, and sometimes musician. He lives in the U.S. Midwest. He can be contacted by email at stephen.debasio@gmail.com, D-I-B-A-S-I-O. And the editor's note of this magazine: because of space constraints, we are unable to publish the endnotes accompanying this article. To access these, visit veteranstoday.com. And here's the information. I'll hold it here so you can pause it. Alright, so if you thought all that was kind of crazy, it's going to get better. Well, apparently on those Baltimore riots they just had, which was another created event, as we all know. The mayor kind of helped push it along to create the riots. And apparently the FBI and probably the Jade Helm people and all these New World Order folks probably had their own little duties to do during that event. FBI admits to flying secret surveillance flights over Baltimore for days as the city rioted over the death of Freddie Gray. The planes were squawking codes only ever used by law enforcement. They were spotted by Eagle Eye residents during unrest in Baltimore. FBI claimed they were there to provide assistance to police on the ground. They were doing one of these Jade Helm, monitoring everybody exercise on how to control these people and use all their electronic equipment and brain scans, probably. The FBI admitted that it flew secret surveillance planes over Baltimore during last week's riots following Freddie Gray's funeral to provide assistance to police on the ground. Looting and fire erupted in the streets on April 27th, only hours after Gray's funeral. The planes were spotted by Eagle Eye residents earlier this week, but their purpose was a mystery at first. So they got these planes and they were scanning data, I guess, and flying all over the city. Seems to me we're in trouble. We people. The citizen-based investigation into their mission then got underway, beginning with a tweet on Saturday from Scan Baltimore, which streams police radio transmissions. So they were flying the plane over and over and over the city. I talked about some other articles or issues in previous videos, and I thought I would go do my homework to be a little bit more proficient and knowledgeable on the subjects. And one of those subjects was electronic gang stalking. You're not going to believe this. I just looked up the keywords electronic gang stalking. Right off the bat here. Get my pages right. Electronic gang stalking. This was on YouTube, so it didn't give me a count, but it seems to be an unlimited number of videos on the subject, as you can see here, 1 through 5. So what I'll do is I'll just read off some of these videos to give you the gist of what these people who have complained that they are being electronically gang stalked. Well, it does say here, 647,000 results. Excuse me. I can't see because of the glare behind me. So apparently, like I said, let me get rid of the glare. Alright, gang stalking, electronic gang stalking. How bad will it get out there? Let's see here. Gang stalking bloggers utilize thousands of likes, shares, and video posts describing gang stalking as a highly criminal campaign. We got witnesses here making videos. Electronic gang stalking, organized gang stalking and electronic harassment on MSNBC, gang stalking and electronic technology harassment, YouTube, gang stalking and electronic harassment, mind control, gang stalking and electronic harassment. Another one, organized gang stalking and electronic harassment. I'll show you these. So you can put in the keywords electronic gang stalking, and you will get these kinds of results. All these videos you can watch. This is serious business. Imagine if a martial law does break out and they really go after the guns or try to suppress the nation into the New World Order and microchip everybody. These people have the science down. More electronic gang stalking images. A lot of people are complaining. A few states have enacted legislation to try to make this stuff illegal. Of course, the NSA, CIA, and all the alphabet, Mossad, MI6, all these organizations don't worry about the laws anymore. And the Constitution to them, if you're a constitutionalist, you're probably going to be deemed an insurgent, a dissident, possibly a terrorist, a threat to national security. And they have the gang stalking techniques to take care of dissidents, insurgents, anti-government belligerents. I love the names they come up with. How do we stop gang stalking? Gang stalking, an update data blog about my adventures with gang stalking. What is gang stalking? Fight gang stalking. Organized stalking methods include warrantless electronic surveillance, slander, blacklisting. It's just page after page. It's real. It's going on. 647,000 results when I put those keywords in there. Electronic gang stalking. It gets crazier. Another thing I looked up that I talked about was nanochips in humans, sky spraying in your water. They now have these silicon little tiny microscopic chips. They can drop from the sky in the sky spraying, put in the water. Probably if you're in a restaurant and they want to get you, they could probably put it in the ventilating system and you'll breathe it in. And it shows you what they look like. So I put this on YouTube and I got pages and pages of reviews, as you can see here. And of course they only give you so many views before you have to click a button and go to page 2 and page 3. I'll just show you these and then we'll look at a few. Make this quick. You can look it up. Nanochips in humans. And there's many more pages you can choose here. So you get a whole many more lists. But let's just look at some of these names of these videos, and I've been watching a few. Beyond RFID chips, nanotechnology, software, this video lays out a bright future where human computers, which it will never die. Wow. Shocking. Google nanobot RFID chips to live in humans. In today's video, Christopher Green explains these chips inside humans. Must see nano microchips, proof of mind control implants. Nanochips in use in our environmental poisoning, sky spraying. Engineering update. Nano mission, impossible gets real. Mankind's first superpower. Are you a cyborg? Nanochips in humans. Nano microchips, proof of mind control implants. Microchip invasions, spy chips in your home. This stuff's blowing away here. Dateline NBC, RFID implants, microchip everything, Beast 666. How to cut your SIM card. People all over the world being implanted with the chip. RFID chip, VeriChip Technologies. VeriChip in a 666 calculator equals 666. If you go online, look up 666 calculator, and they have a long list at some of those sites of all the words. Interesting enough, Monsanto computer equals 666. Kissinger. Santa Claus. Who would have thought Santa Claus was an evil thing? But when you go back and check out the history of it when it was created, it seems to become a little bit more nefarious. Apparently the Christmas tree in your house is a phallic symbol, which is part of the pagan religion. Everyone has to chip by 2013. They say like 87, 97, I don't know, % of the people, because of the sky spraying, already have these chips in them. And at certain frequencies, like 3 gigahertz or something, this is 3.2 or something, if they radiate over the town, that frequencies, those micro nanochips inside us now can trigger some kind of flu-like symptoms, and the people will be dead within 10 days. Like a 97% kill rate. 3% will probably be immune. Crazy? Well, we know they want to get rid of people. But we're going to get to that in a second. I was watching another video that completely blew me away. You need to go look this up. Is scopolamine the world's scariest drug? I watched this. It's down there in Colombia. It's a very common tree with a very pretty flower. What would it take to be considered the world's scariest drug? A documentary that has gone viral in 2 days has a suggestion. It's one that criminals can use to erase your memory and renders you incapable of exercising free will. So if they get some of this drug, which looks exactly like cocaine, and they put a little bit in their hand and blow it your way, you immediately go into a trance. And you're completely under that person's influence. That person, a criminal, will say, let's go to your ATM and withdraw money. And you will get up and do as told. The drug called scopolamine, also known as the devil's breath, is derived from a particular type of tree common in Colombia called the borracho tree. The word borracho, which roughly translates to get you drunk, grows wild in Bogota, Colombia. So this tree, which naturally produces scopolamine, is so famous in the countryside that mothers warn their children not to fall asleep below its cunningly beautiful yellow and white flowers. We probably should put up some sort of fence up, jokes biologist Gustavo Morales at Bogota's botanical gardens to routers. Eyeing children playing with borracho seeds everywhere. The pollen alone is said to conjure up strange dreams. So apparently watching the video, which you can go watch, prostitutes in Bogota, Colombia, will slip a little bit in somebody's drink, and then of course they will take them back to their apartment and give them all their money, give them their TV, their camera, their motel room. You completely fall under the control of the person who gave it to you, who's talking to you. And sometimes it'll kill you. But I'm thinking, you know, the school shootings and all this other stuff, that I'm sure that the government officials and people who are trying to do this New World Order, gang stalking, mind controlling, stealing from wealthy people, getting their all their assets, their ranches, their countryside, the tools they have. This is a plausible, according to this guy in this video, which you can go look up, by Yukio Strachan, Y-U-K-I-O-S-T-R-A-C-H-A-N. He does a great job in the video. Here he is. It's on the YouTube. You can look it up. He takes you to visit some of the criminals who have been saying that they use it to rob people. Some people, they slip a little bit to them, and then they take them into a hotel room, remove their organs, leave them a note that they have like 24 hours to get to the hospital, they're going to die. They might take out a liver or something. But apparently it's quite the crazy drug. Makes people fall under the influence of whoever gives it to them. So when you say that those people who did those shootings could not have been controlled by some nefarious Secret Service agency, you would be wrong. They certainly can. And not only that, I looked it up on Wikipedia. And back in World War II, they did use it. I like to print this stuff out to prove to people. I mean, I'm learning as I go when I do these videos, obviously. Interrogation and criminal use. The effects of scopolamine were studied by criminologists in the early 20th century. That's 1910, 20, 30, 40. In 2009, it was proved that Czechoslovak Communist State Security Police used scopolamine at least 3 times to obtain confessions from alleged anti-state conspirators. So if you don't go along with the New World Order and the gun confiscation that might be in the Pacific Trade Agreement that Obama's doing, and he announces on TV that it's in a secret treaty, and so it becomes the law of the land, you might be an anti-state conspirator if you get in cahoots with people and try to hide the guns. You could get some scopolamine put in you. You'd tell on all your friends. Or get some of this and told to go shoot up a church. Is that what they could do? Apparently they can. But the question is, would they? With that note, I got more information. Well, I'm almost done with this video, but I just had a couple tidbits here that were just too much and going over the top. So they created the United Nations after World War II. After the failed League of Nations and after World War I, the problem was they failed to get control of it, the communists. So they had to collapse it and have another war, and they created the United Nations, which in its charter, according to what I read, always has communist nation leaders installed as the president or the leader of the United Nations. What's with that? Apparently they are anti-capitalist, which is anti-freedom, because you know if it's a socialist world and everybody's going to get the same ration of beans and coffee and water, and if you don't work, they're not going to give you your credits, chipping everybody. And if you don't swear allegiance to Lucifer, according to their religion, the New World Order, New Age, with the alternate lifestyle, even the pedophilias are trying to get in on the gay marriage thing, saying they were born that way, according to some Denver document. And so I am against all this so-called mind control acceptance of all this decadent lifestyle. And if you're not for it, you're a hater. What's with that? Seems to me that the Protocols of Zion, which says they're going to confuse everybody and divide and conquer, is working out good for them. And another document just like it was found by some courier in Germany 80, 90 years ago or whatever. He crashed and I guess lightning hit him, and the authorities found a pouch with a manifesto document talking about taking over the entire world, divide and conquer, and confusing everybody, all the things going on today. And because of that, the government went around to all the Freemasonic lodges and other lodges, shut them all down all over Europe, but the information actually never took hold in America. So anyways, I'm trying to wonder what's going on with the sky spraying and all this other craziness. Now they're in North Carolina. They just made it illegal as of August next month to sell a live chicken or turkey. And I'm thinking, who is trying to remove the food supply? Who is fracking the water, saying it's a good thing when it's poisoning the water? All the fish in the Pacific are dying. They poisoned all the fish in the Gulf. And the pollution is happening everywhere. Intentional spills are going on all the time. Droughts are causing crop losses. Water tables in Florida, my friend told me, at this one swimming spot where it used to be here, it's up to your ankles. So somebody's trying to take away the resources ahead of some big event where people are not going to be able to go to the grocery store. They won't be able to survive, and that's one reason why they want to disarm everybody. So they'll be easier to kill, in my opinion. And all this electronic devices and remote viewing and all these other nefarious sciences they have. So I've been paying attention, and I keep getting these hints. One of the things they really, really want to do, and one of them, I saw a video where an official was saying right in the video, there are too many people on this planet. We need to reduce the population, and we need to reduce it now. It's not sustainable. And Hitler used to say, if you tell a big lie often enough, everybody will believe it. He said the bigger the lie, the easier people will be to believe it. So I looked up population reduction, United Nations. You're not going to believe this. Those are the keywords. You can look them up. So as you can see, there's just pages and pages and pages of results. And apparently on Yahoo I get 2 pages with the 23,600,000 search results here. 23 million search results for population United Nations keywords. It says here, Agenda 21, United Nations population reduction. United Nations pushes population control agenda. The United Nations has openly proclaimed that the world's increasing population is a cause for concern. H.G. Wells said that in 1930. Albert Pike in Morals and Dogma, the Bible for the Freemason, in 1880 wrote the book and said that 3 world wars would be fought to bring about the New World Order. United Nations engages in major population. A major disagreement among demographics experts threatens to upend efforts to include population control and family planning. This is what the gay agenda and all that's all about. The population reduction agenda for dummies. Governments around the world are eagerly adopting the strict population control. Population Control 1. Bush administration set to cut United Nations population control funding. Al Gore, Agenda 21, population control. The following is how the United Nations defines Agenda 21. So do you have an opinion and would you like to share about Al Gore? United Nations is oftentimes barbaric population control apparatus are under fire again after releasing a deeply controversial report claiming that UN unveils plot to reduce African population. I kid you not. Crazy. The elite agenda for global population control is not a conspiracy theory. It is on the record and documented by Paul Johnson Watson, PrisonPlanet.com. World Population Plan of Action. The electronic version of this document can be available by the United Nations Population Information Network. On July 29th, the Population Division will release a 24th round of official United Nations population estimates and projections. So they have all these high technologies, gang stalking, electronic surveillance, mind control, and they have an agenda, as we all know. Jade Helm is all a computerized program that takes the human equation out of it when they decide who dies and lives and who's an insurgent, terrorist, anti-government, belligerent, whatever. So, as I am, Freemasonry and Satanism, I'm always asking, who? What's this have to do with the Bible, Freemasonry and Satanism? So I was watching another video, and I saw some stuff, and as you know me, I don't believe what I watch. I look it up. And this lady, Liz Liar, whatever her name is, was talking about some things, and I looked it up. I said, "Oh my God!" So they want to get rid of religion, but do they really? Leading Israeli rabbi and Kabbalist, I keep talking about Kabbalah, it's magic, witchcraft, says the arrival of the Messiah is imminent. This is 7/9/2015, a couple days ago. So they're saying the arrival of the Messiah is imminent. So they're shooting down all the Christians and calling them mentally challenged or mentally ill for believing in Jesus and believing in Christianity, and a hater for not wanting to go against the 7th commandment, adultery. Or transgender, transvestites, bisexuality, who knows, sex with animals, cloning, creating weird creatures they're doing. You're a hater if you're not for all that stuff. Group sex, indiscriminate, who cares, casual sex, sex open in bars, streets, everywhere. Got some pedophilia, children. But here we got the leading Israeli rabbi and Kabbalist says the arrival of the Messiah is imminent. I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you out of the countries where you are scattered, with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with wrath poured out. Ezekiel 20-34. Rabbi Chaim Kaninsky, however you say his name, has issued a call for Jews to move to Israel in preparation for the imminent arrival of the Messiah. So one has to ask the question, which Messiah? These people are in control of the United Nations, the Zionists, and they are, everybody knows, if you look at a map, or look up Zionism and images, you will see plenty of Jewish people saying what I'm saying in photographs about these Zionist Jews who apparently turned from God and went to a Luciferic religion with all these satanic rituals and Super Bowl halftime shows, Grammys, Olympic openings, everywhere. Kids' cartoons, TV shows, and in public thing you go around seeing in the city streets, demonic tattoos and craziness on people, like they're under some kind of mind control. You ask yourself, what would possess anybody to put a big monster on their arm or chest, or something crazy on? One guy opened his shirt up in a bar and showed me a big Masonic compass, a Mason. This big, the whole chest. Alright, Rabbi Chaim Kaninsky, a leading authority in mainstream ultra-Orthodox Judaism, has been giving clear and unequivocal messages recently of the coming Messiah is imminent. Remember, these people control the world. That's the key thing to remember. And they have all these technologies and computers and people hooked up to computer, carrying the cell phones, brain scanning them and mental suggestions, and who knows what they can cause people to shoot people and do things. He is urging Jews to make aliyah as soon as possible. Aliyah, a Hebrew verb for going up, refers to immigrating to Israel, which is interesting too. They want to eliminate patriotism and sovereign nations worldwide and have one nation, except dot on the map called Israel. And you can't immigrate to Israel unless you are Jewish. So clearly a racist state, and nobody else can get there. And they're not going to they're going to be the ones, according to New World Order stuff and biblical stuff, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, will be the handlers of the world, control everything. And it's probably not going to be very much fun, especially with the depopulation agenda. They just feel 6 billion people is too many people for them to manage. So like the Georgia USA Guidestones say, they want 500 million. It looks like they're putting all the pieces in place. Military equipment, scanning equipment, FEMA camps, Walmart being converted into re-education centers or prisons. You can go look this up online. Jade Helm, Agenda 21, Infowars.com, StephenQuayle.com, Drudge Report. Just put any of these keywords, you will get more than what you want to know in information. So here the Jewish people a couple days ago are giving the call out to all the Jews worldwide. This thing is coming, and it's coming quick, while we're having Jade Helm. While they're destroying the food supply in North Carolina, saying they're not going to be allowed to sell live turkeys or live chickens. Somebody's getting ready to get rid of the food. So if that isn't enough that the Messiah is coming and all the Jews need to head home, and they've been being forced to go back to create Israel for the last 70, 80 years, even causing turmoil in Iraq and Argentina and everywhere in the world. And that's one of the big beefs they have with Iran, is the Jews there won't leave. And they're trying to make it a really nasty affair. But these are the good Jews who are trying to warn us about the bad Jews, the ones who still worship God and believe in the Ten Commandments, versus the one that own the websites that tell you you can have an affair and cheat on your spouse, which is against the 7th commandment. And it makes it a criminal in the army to talk about Jesus or Christianity. And pretty soon the Christians will be singled out, it seems, from all the indicators. If you start plotting a graph of the activities, gag order in Oregon, you can't speak out against gay marriage. And if maybe they'll make having a Bible a crime. Prosecute and persecute. Behead Christians. How crazy will it get? Well, it gets a little crazier. The Temple Institute I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Go look up this website. You will get more than you want to know. Raising a red heifer in Israel. What's with that? And I think we know that the Moloch, the god, the demon god, is a bull. And usually if you go online and look up Moloch in images, you will see this big demon god bull with a human in its mouth biting off its head. What's it got to do with this? And when Moses went up to the mountain to talk to God and get the 2 tablets, he came back and all the Jewish people, the Hebrews, had gathered together all their gold and made a golden calf. And Benjamin Netanyahu said the United States is a golden calf to be fleeced again and again and again. Why? Because they can take it. We hate them. We're going to turn them into a third world nation and sell off everything piece by piece. We're going to make them wish they or regret for not wanting to be our slaves. Benjamin Netanyahu Finksbar, look it up. Don't believe me. Lord, don't believe me. I want people to do their homework. So anyways, raising a red heifer in Israel, and we know the Aliyah, they've been trying to get everybody to move back home. Every day, if you look up Aliyah, if you want to know how to spell the word, A-L-I-Y-A-H. where my finger is. Anyways, if you look up the jpost.com, the Jerusalem main newspaper, they have a section called Aliyah, and planes after planes every day right now. While the whole world is suffering in chaos in Ukraine, the Middle East, the United States, they're flying in on planes and great big welcoming parties. Aliyah, the return of the Jews to Israel, a biblical thing. These people are celebrating this coming New World Order taking over the world, where they're going to rule everything that their God, they say, told them they were going to do. And apparently that Messiah is on his way any day, and they're having Jade Helm with troops all over the United States. One wonders. Raising a red heifer in Israel, the Temple Institute, look up this website, because there's much more to it. As, for example, this end-time prophecy that's supposed to come about is going to happen when they rebuild the third temple of King Solomon. They destroyed 2 temples throughout history. So the whole thing is they're once that third one gets erected, game over. The Messiah is here, takes over the world, kills off a bunch of people, enslaves all the rest. New Age, New World Order, according to my research. And it says right here, the Temple Institute raises $100,000 for the third temple. So what really piques my anger is you talk to people out on the streets these days, and they'll just get defiant and arrogant, and they'll go, there is no God. That stuff's been proven a hoax. I don't believe it. They have been mind controlled. They've been told that by newscasters, TV shows, movies, books, propaganda, New Age magazines. And if you go buy New Age books, old ones, and you look in the cover, they were published by Lucifer Publishing Company, which later changed its name to Lucas Publishing Company. You can look this up on Wikipedia and look in the inside of the book. So Lucifer Publishing Company was promoting in the early 1900s, 1910, 1920, 1880, 1890, right up to the 60s, the hippie movement and all that. Lucifer Publishing Company. Need I say more? Which were owned by these, everybody doesn't know that, the publishing company were owned mostly by the Jewish people. Who would have thunk that? Like Hollywood? And again, not all Jews are in on this. A lot of Jews are trying to warn us. They write books. Henry Macau, PhD, the Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. All the Freemasonic books I've gone over keep talking about Jerusalem and their allegiance to Jerusalem. One candidate for president right now in the United States, 2015, said in a recent interview, soon as I'm elected president, the first person I'm calling is Benjamin Netanyahu. How does the dot on the map have the control over America? So the Temple Institute crowdfunding campaign to raise funds for the modern architectural plans for the third Holy Temple in Jerusalem came to a close on Rosh Hashanah, a Jewish holiday, after surpassing its $100,000 goal in 60 days. These people are serious. All this World War I, World War II, getting ready for World War III, these people are serious. They have all these electronic technologies. They're using it to be able to get ready for control, probably already controlling some people, and using these technologies to kill them or steal all their assets. And they're doing exercises like the Baltimore riots, and they're having planes flying around and testing all the sensors. They're getting ready, it seems. Anyways, the initiative began on the first month of when Jews commemorate the destruction of the ancient holy temples. So like I said, piquing my anger is the fact that you talk to anybody, they've been so programmed, they're so zombified, that they'll go, there is no God. Meanwhile, the people who control the planet definitely believe in a Messiah is coming and believe in God and want to build the third temple as per their holy books. Who is their God? So apparently it will be the demonic Lucifer. They got a telescope, the Vatican, in Arizona named Lucifer. Crowdfunding is a new method of fundraising which leverages the power of the internet to gather investments or contributions from around the world. The Temple Institute uses the Indiegogo platform to reach out to supporters to get the money. So what they do is Jews have prayed to rebuild the temple. They're praying. So the Jews believe in God, but their propaganda is telling the rest of us not to believe in God. Why? Because they know praying and believing in God is an opiate. It's a drug. It also connects your right brain to the higher world. And God can make changes and alter reality. They don't want you to know that. But they're having satanic rituals, killing children, to please their God. Look it up on the internet. Don't believe me. Jews have prayed to rebuild the temple 3 times daily since its destruction by Roman legions in 70 AD. So 70 years after Jesus was born. The Temple Institute project to draw up architectural plans began 3 years ago with the chamber of Hugh Sohn depicted in the video. So they're getting ready to put up one of these quickie buildings once they get ready to do it. The temple will be erected overnight. People will be surprised. The Messiah will be announced. Maybe they'll use satellites in space, the HARP microwave transmitter systems, holographic images, your cell phone TV, a fake EMP pulse. I don't know. Nuclear explosions causing a tsunami, crashing the stock market, closing all the banks. I don't know. But it looks like they have plenty of options to do something. And they want to take over the world. You can go look at this Temple Institute, and I think you'll be shocked at it. And lastly, I'd like to say that I've been watching videos, and I'm becoming a little bit more discerning as to what I believe and don't believe. And it has been my opinion that they did not go to the moon in Apollo craft back in 1969, 70, 71, 72, 73. If you look at pictures of those craft, they're little flimsy craft with little tubes connecting the legs and little cotter pins. And if you think about it, you know, it took a big rocket just to get it off the ground. Then when you get up in space, you have to accelerate to go to the moon. You have to decelerate once you get halfway. Then you have to decelerate to try to land and get in position. Then you have to launch off. Then you have to accelerate to get halfway back. Decelerate to when you get back. The ship doesn't slow down on its own. When you get to Earth, you have to get in position and use your thrusters so you don't burn up in the atmosphere. It's like trying to go from North Carolina to California on 1 tank of gas. You can't do it. Number 2. The Van Allen radiation belt. Just consider this. Would you operate your microwave without the door closed? Of course not. Well, if you left the inside of the Earth, that's inside the Van Allen belt, it's a shield around the Earth. And went on the other side of it in that flimsy craft, you would be in a microwave-like cosmic particle field from radiating from the sun with it like operating your microwave without the door open. Everybody would have been cooked and pelted with little microwave particles. That's why when you get your teeth worked on or whatever, they give you an x-ray, the nurse or the doctor wears a big leaded shield. They couldn't build a ship with leaded shields thick enough to protect them from the Van Allen belt. And then there's so many videos of high-powered people exposing the photographs. Odyssey 1000 was sponsored by some governmental agencies, which gave that particular movie producer an unlimited budget and has the background of the moon and all that, while next door they had another building which probably had the props for the going to the moon stuff. So they made it all in a movie studio while they were making Odyssey 1000 with all the special effects. But what's interesting, why I'm getting more discerning, one video I watched, you have to be careful for this stuff. One video I watched, the guy was debunking the debunking theory. He said the reason that NASA made those moonshots in a studio is because when we really landed on the moon, which we don't want to admit, is there were a bunch of aliens there in buildings. So we had to cover that all up and make all the stuff in the moonshots in a laboratory. I'm watching the video, I said, my God, this is debunking the debunking. So they want the people to know that the stuff was made in a movie studio. You can see the reflection on the guy's helmet and other things, shadows crossing this way. There's only one light source if you're on the moon. It's from the sun. So people have pulled all. So this one guy is pretty serious about it. Says, yeah, they had to do that in the studios because when we really landed there, Armstrong saw the aliens and the ships and the cities, and we couldn't tell the American people that. Because that would just mess with all their religious beliefs. So when you watch these videos, you got to start using your God-given brain. Another one was lost my train of thought there. There was another video talking about can't think of it. Mind control. Thank you for watching my videos. Give me a thumbs up. Leave a nice comment. If you disagree, be polite. Show me where I'm wrong. I'll investigate. But this all seems pretty nefarious and scary. The sky spraying, the nanoparticles, gang stalking electronically, Jade Helm with all the software making decisions, the Jewish people, the Messiah's coming, everybody hurry up home, something big's going to happen. Read the Bible, watch some videos, but be careful because a lot of those videos seem to be propaganda, like all those New Age books published by Lucifer Publishing. They got scare alerts like Planet X coming. In the news, they're announcing all these volcanoes popping off. Then they talk about aliens are real, and that's why they faked a moon shooting. Are they planning an alien invasion, some websites say? And then maybe whoever's going to come save us is going to be a Messiah. Thank you for watching my video. Rick Marrico reporting.